Taxi drivers of Reddit, have anyone actually jumped into your taxi and screamed follow that car? If yes, what happened? I was in New Orleans once and a cab I was in got sideswiped by a drunk driver. The drunk driver then took off. I told the cab to follow him, which he did. We ended up in a parking lot and we watched them go into an apartment building. Cabbie had the station call the cops. I wrote a statement for the cabbie and he called me a new cab while he wanted for the cops. You are a good person. You spent your own time to help a complete stranger. It's only 2 sentences, but that's a really impactful statement. I drove a taxi one summer in a party resort. One night, 2 guys jumped in and yelled follow that car, which was another taxi that I knew the driver of and I obliged. Turns out, one of their mates was drunk AF and decided to just go to their hotel without telling them. They only saw the guy leaving the club drunk and they thought he was going to a strip club without them. He was actually going to their hotel, as he was hammered. Another time 3 girls jumped in the car and said follow that car. The car in question was a black sedan, tinted back windows. Yet wasn't that shady mo. We followed the car for 15 minutes, leaving the resort going into a forest. The girls start freaking out, as one of their friends, also a girl, was seen stepping into that car. Yeah, turns out, that she just hooked up with some guy in the club they were earlier and she was about to suck his D when we pulled up next to them. Weirdest summer. Honestly, those are good friends, they were just making sure she was safe. Or the girl's a shitty friend for not saying anything. It's both. Good friends for chasing after her, shitty friend for not giving her friends the heads up she was leaving. Edit. I knew saying heads up was going to end in too many puns. She was more worried about going heads down. I'll say with pride, I've always found there's not a girl the world around that offers gifts as half as fine as any single one of mine. It's not a grind, it's not a chore. It's not a long and lengthy bore, nor task to dread. I've always said, I'd rather shake another's head. There's not a thing could ever beat the sense when heads, in passion, meet and I'm the best. The blow-by-blow, aficionado fellatio. Enthusiasts alike unite. The time's at hand. The feeling's right. So swallow all your fear and find, it's not a job, but state of mind. Aficionado fellatio. Oh my god, this might be the best use of human language in all of human history. It's so fun the way it rolls off the tongue that I'm afraid I might find myself saying it around my little nieces and nephew in a sing-songy way. If asked where it came from, I'd probably just tell them Mary Poppins. Seriously, brav ducking oh. I did that once as a passenger. We said it as a joke. We were in a group of 6 and couldn't fit in a single cab. So I went into the second cab and said, follow that cab. We expected the driver to laugh it off and ask for our destination. Instead, he just took off and followed the first cab. Had been waiting for that moment. He was ready. Buckle up, boys. I was born for this. This is it. My time has come. My destiny will finally be fulfilled. I knew waiting for the prop catchy instead of following my dreams would pay off. Edit, I swear I know how to spell, but now I'm leaving it there because someone applauded me for not being a coward. I followed the car. It stopped in a suburban house. Dude went into the house. They were his family and didn't have room for him with them. What a roller coaster. Reality is often disappointing. Love and marriage. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. This I tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other. Friend of mine is a taxi driver and this has happened to him. An elderly man rushed inside his taxi and pointed out loud to follow a red Toyota. This man never explains why to follow, just tries to frantically call to somewhere. My friend asked multiple times if they need to call police, but the man just waved no and pointed to follow the car. They circle around the town, finally ending up to a front of a house where the car followed parks. As the car stops, man says hold on a moment, I'll pay. And jumps out of the car. An elderly lady steps out of the red Toyota and the man, apparently her husband, starts to scream, why did you left me at the mall? Woman is waving her hand screaming back, what are you screaming about, you are here? And walks inside the house like nothing has happened. Man returns and pays the drive, being sorry about it all at the same time. My friend thought they were following a burglar or something, but it turned out the lady just forgot her husband at the mall. Funny situation in a way, but sad in a way too, as my friend said. Dementia. Edit, sleepy typos. What are you screaming about? You are here? Can't argue with that. Or technically the truth. I asked a taxi driver that question many years back. He said that happened on 2 separate occasions, and both times, a wife was trying to catch her cheating husband committing adultery. Update, I have been getting a lot of comments on whether the husband cheated on the wife twice. I'm not sure about that, but the story that I was told was 2 different couples. Also, one of the wives actually caught her husband meeting his mistress. And? Did she? We need answers up. This is Reddit, up never. Unless it is cat tax. This sort of happened to me about 20 years ago. Not a taxi driver, although I was driving down a main road and saw a dude running around with a baseball bat, and then come cop cars parked on a side street. Young me decided that I want to get involved, so I pulled down the side street and found a cop on foot a good distance away from his car. I told him about baseball bat guy, and he gets on his radio. Guess he got an immediate update on his radio, looks at how far he is from his car, and he says, "Can you drive me down the road?" I'm thinking duck yeah, and tell him to jump in. He does, and I am seriously driving around back roads with a cop riding shotgun giving me directions while on his radio. Only lasted for about 2 minutes, and then he jumps out to pursue the guy on foot. Not a very satisfying ending to the story, since I never found out what happened. But damn it, that's my story. I'm actually a taxi driver, bike taxi pedicab. I was hanging out a corner when a coworker of mine got a ride across the intersection. Suddenly a guy walks up to me and tells me to follow that cab, but keep a distance. This guy looked current or ex-military, demeanor, haircut, attitude. Has one of those earbuds like the agents from The Matrix. Exuded the vibe of being very professional, competent, and not giving a duck at the same time. So I was born for this moment. I read all the Tom Clancy books as a kid, all the books about spycraft during World War II and the Cold War, every spy movie ever made, etc. I kept about 100 yards distance and then would accelerate when they went around a curve anytime they were near a light or intersection. I have all the lights memorized, to ensure we would make the same light but a little later than they did. At one point a car pulls up alongside and another guy switches places with the original guy, and we keep going. After about 12 blocks the pedicab pulls over ahead of us and the guy tells me to pull over. Hands me $20 for a $12 ride, although I would have done it for free just to live my 9-year-old fantasy. Probably just local cops, but I can dream. They were agents. You just helped catch Neo. Oh no, not Kenny you. A personal trainer at my old gym did this. He saw a guy shoot another guy in the head and jump into a car, so he got into a cab so the shooter wouldn't get away. The cabbie followed the car for a bit until he learned that he was following a murderer, then he pulled over and refused. Turns out, the shooter was an undercover police officer, who sped away because he thought the victim's friends would get to the scene before the cops. My uncle has a similar story. He recently had his car stolen and was driving his GF's car, when he noticed his stolen car driving around. He followed the car until it pulled up next to a house and did a drive-by. I believe someone was shot but lived. Needless to say, he no longer followed his car after that. Luckily he was on the phone with police the whole time. Did he get his car back eventually? He did actually, it took a while though. I'm assuming because it was part of evidence and whatnot. When he got it back it was missing all of its contents and radio, so he got rid of it pretty soon after he got it back. Yes, but it's usually followed by "I've always wanted to say that." I've always wanted to pull the opposite. There's no time to explain, get in. Still hadn't built up the courage. 1. Tell family close friend to meet you at X2, say the line. 3. Drive to nice restaurant. Adds to my bucket list. Ooh, I'm not a taxi driver, but I was the passenger for a story that is similarly cliched. Back when I was an active drug addict alcoholic, what's the difference? I know, I had a director threaten to recast me a week before the show if I was late to rehearsal again. To put that into perspective, recasting a major role after rehearsals have started is generally unheard of, and almost unthinkable so late in the rehearsal process. She was really fed up with me. On this particular day, I was running late as usual and had 5 minutes to get to rehearsal. It was a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute drive. I flagged a cab, hopped in and said, "I need you to take me to this address and, if you can, I need you to step on it." The driver smiled wide and said I've always wanted to hear that. Cue him putting the pedal to the metal. Within 10 seconds we were approaching 65 miles per hour on a 30 miles per hour city street, weaving through traffic, clipping yellow lights too close for comfort, and generally whipping this cab around in an extraordinarily haphazard and irresponsible fashion. I was stunned, wide-eyed, in absolute shock and terror, unable to process that he quite literally heeded my request or that this was actually happening. I thought I was going to die. It was the best cab ride of my life. I was 2 minutes early to rehearsal. I once had a similar experience, except the situation was that I had missed my alarm and woke up about 15 minutes before the flight was boarding. Got a cab and told him I needed to be at the airport as fast as possible and I would pay $50 in cash for the ride, about a $40 tip. I made the flight but was certain I was about to be in a horrible accident the whole drive there. Taxi drivers apparently do not fear death. It's like the joke, so Therese this priest who dies and goes to heaven, and Hess waiting in the line in front of the pearly gates. So the line moves, and it's the guy in front of him's turn to talk with St. Peter. So the guy says, "My name is Vinny Sarducci, taxi driver from Las Vegas." St. Peter says, "Vinny? Glad to meet you. Please, take this golden staff and this silk cape, and enter the kingdom of heaven." At this point the priest is pretty excited, and he says I am James Green, a priest who has proudly served God for 60 years. #Thank you Mr. Green, please take this wooden staff and this cotton cape, and enter the kingdom of heaven. #I don't mean to be rude, but why does that taxi driver get the good stuff when I get a wooden staff and a cotton cape? Well, up here in heaven, we judge people by results. While you prayed, people slept, and when he drove, people prayed.